here. Now, before we do begin, I do also want to acknowledge and thank those who have reached out to myself personally during this incredibly horrific time, including the Prime Minister, Mr. Poilievre, Premier Eby, countless mayors and elected officials and community leaders throughout North America, and for that matter, all across the planet. Thank you for your support during Vancouver's time and the Filipino community's time of crisis and need. Now, I stand here before you today not just as the Mayor of Vancouver, but also as a father, a husband, a son, a neighbor, and a friend. Yesterday, Vancouver and the Filipino community suffered its darkest day here in the city of Vancouver. And I've spent the morning speaking with families and community leaders. Let me just tell you, their strength, even through this unimaginable pain, exemplifies Vancouver's resiliency. Like all of you, I'm completely heartbroken. I'm shocked, and I'm angry. And I'm devastated by the lives that have been lost and the pain that's been inflicted on our community. What happened at the Lapu Lapu Festival last night was unthinkable. Families gathered to celebrate, to dance, to share their culture and their pride. And in an instant, their world was shattered. To the Filipino community and the family members of the victims, we see you, we love you, and we grieve with you. Family is everything, and I just want you to know that your family is our family too. Now, I do want to thank the first responders, to the police officers, the firefighters, the paramedics, and the healthcare workers. You represent the best of us. Public safety has been our key priority since day one. And I want to know how we can avoid an incident like this from ever happening again. Now, I've asked and I've received a full briefing by the VPD and our team at the city here on yesterday's incident. And as a result, I've directed a full review of our event safety measures, including barriers, traffic control, and safety protocols. Our first priority is and will always be protecting the residents of Vancouver. Now, I know many of us are fearful and feel uneasy right now. But I do want to make something very clear, and I know it's hard to feel this way right now, but Vancouver is still a safe city. We have over 3,000 events and festivals per year in our city, the vast majority happening without incident whatsoever. So I do encourage you, and I understand how people may feel, but I encourage you to keep your plans in place and enjoy these events. Now, I do want to take this opportunity to lay out some facts about the incident. Here's what I can confirm at this time. Number one, the suspect has been arrested and is currently in VPD custody. Secondly, evidence points to this not being an act of terrorism. Thirdly, the individual in question has a significant history of mental health issues. And fourthly, he is known to police for a multitude of mental health interactions. Now, it would appear that mental health appears to be the underlying issue here. And I want to be clear, if anything is to come of this tragedy, it has to be change. Now, I personally will not stop calling on governments to make these changes now. We can't stop. I'll endeavor to bring everyone to the table to tackle this. the provincial government, the federal government, our community partners, because Vancouver can't wait. Vancouver, we're united in your sorrow, and we're united in our resolve. This is our city, this is our family, and we will move forward together. We love you all, and Salamat po. Thank you very much. Now, that being said, I do want to read a bit of an announcement here. And this is a call for community. At 5 p.m. at Kensington Park, myself and others will be meeting with the Filipino community. So please join us. There will be a vigil at 6 p.m. Tonight. So when it comes to community supports, a 24-hour assistance center has been established at the Douglas Park Community Center at 801 West 22nd Avenue. Vancouver police officers and victim services professionals have been deployed to help anyone who has not been able to contact a loved one who was at the Lapu Lapu Festival. If you're not able to attend in person, please call 604-717-3321. Once again, that's 604-717-3321. For those looking for support, a 24-hour assistance center has been established at the Douglas Park Community Center at the same address, and VPD officers and victim services professionals have been deployed to anyone who has not been able to contact a loved one who was at the Lapu Lapu Festival. Okay. If you're not able to attend in person, please call once again at 604-717-3321. For all City of Vancouver team members and your families, immediate mental health support is available from Homewood Health, the city's employee and family assistance provider. Homewood staff provide confidential professional services and are available 24 hours a day at 1-800-663-1142. Once again, that's 1-800-663-1142. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of everyone at the Vancouver Police Department, I want to extend our most heartfelt condolences to the victims, their loved ones, and everyone in our community who has been impacted by last night's mass casualty event. This is a tragedy the likes of which the city has never experienced before. Last night, as members of Vancouver's Filipino community gathered for a celebration of community and culture in East Vancouver, their collective safety and security were stolen when a man in a vehicle drove through a festival crowd and struck dozens of people. 11 people have now died. Their ages range from 5 to 65. Dozens more are injured, some critically, and some have not yet been identified. A 24-hour assistance center has been established at the Douglas Park Community Center, 801 West 22nd Avenue. Vancouver police officers and victim services professionals have been deployed to help anyone who has not been able to contact a loved one who was at the Lapu Lapu Festival. If you're not able to attend in person, please call 604-717-3321 to speak with a victim liaison officer. We are all experiencing a range of emotions right now, from grief to anger to disbelief. These emotions will continue over the coming days as we learn more about the suspect and gain a clearer picture of what exactly transpired last night. While there are many details I cannot share at this point, I am able to say that the person we have in custody does have a significant history of interactions with police related to mental health. I can also say with confidence that we do not believe this was an act of terrorism, nor do we believe there are any ongoing threats to our community. More than 100 police officers, Vancouver police officers, are currently working on this case, and we will continue to dedicate every available resource at our disposal to complete this investigation and to provide the answers everybody wants. We are focused on the victims, the families, and a community as a whole as we work to investigate this crime. Once again, we offer our sincere condolences to everyone impacted by these tragic circumstances. We are grieving with you. Here.
Thanks. We'll now move to questions. Again, please state your outlet, your name, leave it to one follow-up, and you can always get back in line for second round. And we'll start now. Questions are being directed at Mayor Ken Sim and Chief Steve Rye, please.
Hi, this is Cecilia Hua with City News. Could either be Mayor Sim or Chief Rye. The word risk assessment is thrown around a lot. Just walk us through the protocol for determining the safety risks for an event like this and what led to the decisions of there not being a heavy barriers and a more police presence at Lapu-Lapu.
Sure. So there's a formula, and we'll get into this in the coming weeks. It'll be transparent, those answers, but I can tell you off the top of my head and at this moment. So there is a formula where an assessment is done. It's everything from social media, scanning all of social media. Is there anyone out there making threats on this event? Is there a potential pop-up demonstration? Is there somebody associated to this event that has a history with people, organizers, just a whole gamut of items. We also look at the past history of the event. So last year, I had mentioned earlier, there were 0 interactions with police at this festival. It was a family-friendly cultural celebration involving kids. And we wanted to maintain that based on that information and that threat assessment. We don't want to cage everybody up at every event in the city of Vancouver. That's easily, we can do that like some other places in the world, but it hasn't been warranted here. And just so you know, we did police this event. During the day, we had one lost child found by officers who were there. Somebody had lost their car. They didn't know where they had parked it. We helped them find it. And there was another public assistance call, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but we were there when we were called upon. But according to the assessment, there was no need to lock it down like we would some other more high-risk events based on the intelligence we gathered. So the key word is in gathering intelligence and assessing it, and this did not meet that threshold.
Another question for you. Photos of the suspect have been circulating around social media already. I know you're not releasing his identity, but through the multiple interactions he's had with police and health professionals, were there any interactions in the day prior to the event and any interactions that led you to believe that he might have violent tendencies?
So I have to respect the investigation. The questions you're asking, we did not, from our knowledge at this point, have previous interactions leading up to this event, immediately leading up to this event.
Hi, I'm Susanna Su from Phoenix TV. I have a question for the mayor. So you shared that the city would be changing protocols or better protecting large events in the future from tragedies happening again. So could you talk about that in details and what will be changing in the future to better protect large events? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So what we do is whenever an incident like this happens, we become very, we'll do a debrief, we'll assess, everything that has happened to date and, learn from it. And we're also proactive as well. For example, just this week I was actually just in Boston with Boston PD and NYPD and state and federal agencies to see how they how they secure the Boston Marathon as an example. So terrible coincidence of timing, but this is the stuff we take public safety very seriously, and we've been proactive, and all the things that we have done to date, like we're continuously learning and making sure that we bring best practices into securing our city.
Thank you very much.
Hi, it's Penny from CTV News. I'm just curious why there's such a narrow definition in your risk assessment, because it sounds like it's oriented around threats and around bad actors when
we have seen situations in the past, obviously to a much lesser scale, but somebody could be having a medical incident and lead to something like this. So does that factor into your judgment here, or how does that, because it seems to be like if you're looking for, terrorism, I can understand that, but there's other, as we're seeing here now. And will that form into your calculus in the future?
Sure. So if I understand the question right, so as I said, we did police this event. When someone lost their child, we were there within minutes. When someone thought their car was stolen, but it was actually parked somewhere they couldn't remember, we were there in minutes. And there was a third incident. So the police are there. They're there in the neighborhood. If there's a medical emergency, fire's there, ambulance is there. So, it's not like we're not in the neighborhood. We're just not marching up and down the street, and we're not putting concrete barriers up with big dump trucks. For the intelligence we had and no threats and previous history of the event, which was a very fun cultural celebration involving young people, majority of it held in the school yard, not accessible to vehicles. So it was not, we try not to cage people in. And it's not that type of environment or family, where we're trying to, have families from doing what they want, celebration and so forth. So we were there, we're in the neighborhood.
Sir, can I just add
Yeah.
something? Thanks, Penny. I think the bigger issue, though, is if, this is a mental health issue. This tragedy happened at an event, but situations like this can happen anywhere. And so I think we have to really step back and ask, what is the root cause of our challenges here, and how do we address that? This isn't just about, putting up barriers at every single event. Are we going to be putting up barriers on Robson and Burrard? Because every time someone crosses that crosswalk, there are a lot of people there. And so right now, the community's really hurting. The city's really hurting. And I just want to let them know this whole team here is completely committed to not just making events safer, but our city safer.
And I'll just touch one more, just following up on the mayor's comment. We got to, the question is, why is this constantly happening with people that need help? Last year we had, just last week we had the young victim female on the seawall. We had last year the male ran up behind someone and cut a limb off and then ran down the street and stabbed him in the back. Why? Why is this happening? So as the mayor said, we can't predict one-offs, and we certainly don't want to create a police state. So the intelligence led up to a proper deployment for the information, and we were in the neighborhood for other assistance.
I guess given your comments, though, it makes me extra confused as to why, if you are seeing a rise in all these mental health calls and you don't know when and where they're going to strike, I'm not saying necessarily that it has to be a dump truck everywhere, because I know that's very expensive, but whether it's cruisers or some sort of other alternative, because these event organizers are typically volunteers, they don't know. So who makes that final decision as to what assets get deployed?
Well, when it comes to health-related issues, you don't know who on the street walking around has an issue. You can't be every 10 feet on every block. Could be in a mall, could be somewhere else. The question would be, how do we get to the root cause and fix it? It's not policing the symptom. We got to get to the root cause. We got to get people help. And it's not putting more cops on the street. Certainly, we're crime fighters. We're not health care fighters. So we need something at the back end. And those are other areas of responsibility, not the police.
Mike Howell from Glacier Media. I just wanted maybe to ask Acting Chief Rye, so the public clearly understands this. You're aware you've had complaints to the police board about police with carbon rifles at Italian Days, at Pride Festival. We've seen heavily armed officers on Remembrance Day with dump trucks. So that the public clearly understands, how is this, the Lapu Lapu Festival, different in terms of assessing it to, say, Italian Days?
Well, again, it's based on intel, and it's based on crowd size. It's based on problem persons that have been entered in the system from other events. So, for example, the ones that we only deploy those kind of precautions at about I believe 8 events based on intelligence. So, Pride Parade, Celebration of Light, Italian Days, Visaki. And there's maybe a couple more in there that I can't remember off the top of my head, but those have warranted, based on the intelligence, that there's going to be protesters there's going to be countering groups, there's going to be maybe a confrontation with somebody. It's all based on history, intel, gathering. We've got a robust intel gathering attached to our planning section. So that's what makes it different, is all those factors. It's just like collecting intelligence for any other criminal kind of environment that we're looking at. You scan every piece of the environment where there's a bit of information. This did not warrant that. We did all those scans, and there's no history. It's a family-friendly cultural event with no history on any system, on any platform. And previously, last year, there was no incidences at all. So.
Just to follow up, at the scene today, I noticed a lot of police officers like 2 or 3 blocks from the scene going door to door. Can you explain what they're doing?
They could be doing a number of things. They could be looking for anybody that had cameras in their house, probably the most likely thing, video prior to the event occurring. That would be my first inclination, and there are other investigative items they may need to follow up, but it would be video most likely.
Hi, Rick Good from Freelancer Press. In your description of terrorism that you're ruling out, you noted political and religious-based ideologies. Is this taking into account ideologies that are not motivated by politics or religion, like the incel movement, anything like that?
Sure. I was using a definition. You could, depending on what textbook we want to look at, I was taking a snippet out of it. We know terrorism is related, for argument purposes, some sort of ideological belief carried out with violence to, hurt people and to pressure a public perception on an item. So it could be political, it could be religious, could be ideological, could be a number of things. In this case, with this individual, there's no information to believe that was the case.
Okay.
Hi, Moira Whiten with the Globe and Mail. A year and a half ago, we had a stabbing attack at a Chinatown festival, similar family-friendly. Was that event, should that have raised red flags or different flags for the planning of security at this event last night?
Go ahead.
Yeah, like I've already said, like we police 2,200 events and 1,000 protests. That's 3,200 different events that that we're looking at. We follow a robust teamwork, stakeholder, city, fire, ambulance. Everything's assessed on the table. So whether something happened in one neighborhood, which is a neighborhood very closely connected to a very troubled neighborhood, there's different information pieces that come in, and so it'd be difficult to take one template from one neighborhood with one set of facts and intelligence and apply it to another event that was actually in an enclosed area of a school.
And maybe approaching your question from a different perspective. Once again, I think we have to get to the root cause of these challenges. So if memory serves me correctly, during the Chinatown Foundation event, there was that incident at the end of the event, and within 10 minutes, the VPD had that person in custody. And so, as Acting Chief Rye mentioned, we can't create a police state here, right? And so it doesn't get to the root cause, and the conversation keeps coming back to mental health. We need to take care of people that are sick, get them the care they need. It's the only humane thing to do for those individuals. And then we start to avoid horrific events that are occurring on a regular basis, not just in Vancouver, but throughout our whole country. And that's the conversation that we have to have going forward, or this isn't going to change.
Thank you. Yes, deeper problems for sure. We also have Asian Heritage Month starting later this week. Plenty more community outdoor events starting with the summer in Vancouver. You're encouraging people, Mayor, to go out to these events to celebrate their culture, be with their communities. What are you doing before this review is complete, before all the facts are known, to ensure that those scenarios, those events will be as safe as possible and that people will feel safe to go?
Well, I know our first responders here are incredible. We do a lot of, work on planning, and a lot of these events have a history. I know it's really hard to feel this right now. I get it, because look, we're also residents of this city. This is a city we love. We have kids, we have family, we have friends here. I was just thinking of my son today. He's helping set up the Sun Run. And so, yeah, we think about it. The feelings, they're understandable. And what I can tell you as well is the vast, vast, vast majority of these events are well planned and they go off without a hitch. And it is understandable when you have one of these horrific events that happens, it shakes us all to the core. And my only comment is, look, you see everyone up here today. We're here for the residents of Vancouver. They represent our family and friends as well. We want to make sure they're safe. And we will do absolutely that.
Thank you.
Hi there, Leanne Yu from CBC News. Just some clarification on the barriers in place. How many barriers were there? Where were they placed? Why were they lifted? And what were the protocols in place for lifting them?
I don't believe we had, barriers. We might have had traffic, the City of Vancouver traffic barriers to direct traffic and keep but if you're talking about different types of barriers, there's cement barriers. You can use trucks as barriers. You can use bollards or a type of barrier. So we didn't remove any because we didn't place them, the trucks and so forth, at the beginning, at the onset, because it wasn't in the plan for this event because of the information did not warrant that for a family event.
I believe we had an eyewitness account who said it was possibly volunteers who moved the barriers just for people to be let in for tear down of vendor tents.
Yeah. So if volunteers are moving, it would have been traffic control kind of barriers, because if they were vehicle interdiction type of barriers, they would not have been able to move those.
Do you know if there was any sort of protocol for, say, asking for vendor ID to allow access into the event?
Well, there were food trucks there, and food trucks, there's a system in place in the City of Vancouver on licensing them and what events they can go to and so forth and so on. So I'm sure that was followed, but we will get through all that in the coming weeks. Right now, our prime concern is compassion and getting some answers for the families and getting this individual through the criminal justice system. And that's the priority, the families, and making sure this individual is treated by the law the way he should be treated. And then down the road, we'll get through all those pieces of information.
Thank you.
Hey there, Sarah McDonald from Global News. First question is for Interim Chief Rye. We spoke this morning and heard from you about how the suspect has a lengthy history of interactions with police. We know that you had an interaction in April 25th, the day before the event, and then in March, so within a month and a half, less than 2 months before the event yesterday. Can you detail, even ballpark, the number of interactions Vancouver police have had with this suspect during his time as an adult over the past 12 years?
you know, I think I commented, I mean, we've had significant interactions with him, from my understanding, on health-related issues. Again, respectful of the investigation and the integrity of the investigation, it's probably not appropriate for me to get further into those details until the right time.
Can you comment or confirm on any confirmed documented diagnosis of schizophrenia?
I can't confirm any of that, and I wouldn't.
Okay, and Mayor Ken Sim, one for you. We keep talking about getting to the root cause here, the mental health aspect of it. You've been outspoken about that in the past. Involuntary care. I think few would object to the notion that this province's healthcare system is adequate at this point. No place or city is worse impacted objectively than Vancouver by the mental health crisis. What do you want to see specifically happen, especially in light of yesterday's events? What will you lobby Premier Eby and the next Prime Minister for?
Yeah, look, first of all, I do want to be respectful. You know, there are a lot of people hurting in this community right now. And so I'll still answer your question, but, you know, I don't necessarily want this, to make this a political thing. Like, there are a lot of people that are hurting right now. But being consistent with what we've said in the past, we do need mandatory care for people with significant mental health challenges or substance use disorder. It's the most humane thing to do. We have people on the streets who cannot direct their own care, and they're causing harm to themselves and other people. And so what I would say, and look, it's not directed at any one political party here, because it doesn't matter who's in Victoria and who's in Ottawa, the same thing will apply, because this has been going on for far too long and throughout many administrations. We need that mandatory care faster. We need more of it, and we need it faster. We cannot take a government approach to this. Lives are on the line. Communities are at stake. And I would challenge any elected official to go to that community right now and say, you know, we're working on it, you know, and it might take a little longer. You know, these are difficult. That community is going through a really difficult time right now. And we owe it to them, and we owe it to Vancouverites to go a lot faster on this.
Which does make it political in some ways. I think a lot of people would say this is going to become political, especially tomorrow when we have a new Prime Minister elected. What do you say to people who are saying, I mean, to Premier Eby as well, we want to hear more. We want tangible action.
Yeah, I would say we want tangible action. And look at it from one perspective, it isn't getting political. Yes, we do have a federal election tomorrow. And we will have a Prime Minister elect, whoever that may be, probably tomorrow night or early, you know, Tuesday morning. And the same thing will apply. And it does not matter what party that person represents. We still need that help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Bob Homer from Freelancer Press. I'm just wondering, was there any discussion about reviewing the security for the Sun Fun Run this morning in light of the event?
Yeah, we, so last night, another members of our team were liaising with the city. There was conversations. It was a joint decision. We were confident the police could provide the security. The city were confident they wanted to proceed. And we concurred that we could deliver the security for the event. And that's what happened.
But was there a discussion about possibly canceling it?
Well, I wasn't part of those. I had a briefing on it, and yes, I mean, that would be a natural discussion point in light of what's happened. And but we were confident we could provide the security for the public.
Thank you.
Just one last question from me at the Globe and Mail, if there's time. Do we know where the vehicle trip began? The suspect left from, whether he was heading directly to the festival, he happened across it?
No, and it goes back to the earlier question. We're working through that in the neighborhood. Probably one of the reasons why we're out there canvassing the video, seeing exactly where, when, how he started. So that's part of the investigation.
Thank you.
Just one follow-up to the mayor. I believe I heard Liberal leader Mark Carney say this morning that he had reached out to you. And is that true? And if so, can you share details of that conversation in light of, you talking about bail reform and mental health, et cetera?
Yeah, like from a high level, yes, he absolutely 100% did call and reach out, and he did offer his support and the federal government's support in Vancouver's time of need, and we are very appreciative of that. We did have a conversation around what the community needs right now. Like I said, the community is really hurting. And then we also talked about, root cause issues and what we need to do as a city, as a province, and as a nation to set us up so these incidents don't happen. And so, we fleshed that out a little bit.
And what did he say?
He said it was very supportive.
Okay, thanks everyone. Barring any further question, that concludes today's presser. Just a point of clarification. Earlier it was referenced a community gathering with the mayor and elected officials at Kensington Park. That is happening at Kensington Community Center in the gymnasium tonight from 5 to 7. If you need more information on that or any other details from today's conference, you can contact media@vancouver.ca and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks.
We were just watching a press conference with Ken Sim, the mayor of Vancouver, as well as the interim police chief, giving an update on the tragedy that took place on Saturday night, where a van ramming incident resulted in the deaths of 11 people, with many other people suffering critical injuries. Some of the things we learned in that presser we just watched was that the youngest of the victims was 5 years old, the oldest was 65, and many other things were both confirmed, and I think some new bits about the investigation came to light. I want to bring in CBC's Sarah Galashan. She has been on this story all day long. She joins us again from Vancouver. Sarah, what stood out to you from that press conference?
Well, Deanna, starting with the victims, yes, ages 5 to 65, we had been told that some of those 11 who were killed in this were very young, and so that speaks to the 5-year-old, the age of 5 there that you heard. But dozens of people were struck when the black Audi SUV drove that way along the street that's behind me into the area where people had been milling about. The food trucks were still there, and that was the only, as I had said before, road access area to this festival that took place yesterday. And of those dozens that have been struck, some are still very injured, some of them critically injured. And what we heard at that press conference is that, in fact, some of those injured have actually not been identified. And so what they said repeatedly throughout is that if you have a loved one who was one of those who would have attended potentially, and you haven't been able to locate them, they provided a number and a location for victim services, and they're urging anyone attending that festival, if they cannot locate or don't know the whereabouts of their loved one, to reach out. Because like I say, some of those who are critically injured, it does sound like they have yet to be identified. We also heard at length, and this was not a surprise because we've heard Mayor Ken Sim talk about the mental illness crisis in the city of Vancouver, and he went through a number of incidents, violent incidents that have occurred, and the person, the alleged or a guilty person in those cases, has suffered extensive mental illness, and he's calling for mandatory care. Mandatory care, involuntary is another way we have put it, for people who have significant mental health care. And the reason he's bringing this up is because this suspect, we do not have a name, there are no charges yet, he is in the custody of police and is being questioned, but the things that we do know about him, that police have said that he had a significant history of mental health issues and was known to police that they'd had, they didn't give an exact number, but numerous interactions with this 30-year-old man for mental health reasons. So we are still learning a little bit more about it. But Mayor Ken Sim making that point, saying he doesn't want to get political, but this is just something that has to be addressed in his mind. And what I want to play you now is a clip from the Premier of the province just a short time ago. He was similarly asked, it does appear that mental health is going to be a very much a factor in this. And when residents of British Columbia, of Vancouver specifically, are expressing anger and frustration over the fact that more is not being done, should there be more on the healthcare side of things to try and deal with this issue, this is what the Premier had to say.
Obviously, this person is profoundly ill. But there's so many questions that I have, there's so many questions that British Columbians have about how that could take place, how we could get to that moment. And as we learn those answers, we'll take the action that's necessary to ensure that it can't happen again. For now, our focus is on supporting the families of the victims and the victims who are injured and struggling right now in hospital.
And he's absolutely right, Deanna. There are a lot of questions we don't have the answers to. First of all, the identity of this man, the suspect who they have in custody, or what might have led up to it. But I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of questions right now being asked about, was there anything that might have stopped this from happening, and would mental health intervention have been something that might have helped here?
Yeah, Sarah, I think that you really delineated there how this press conference started with Mayor Ken Sim expressing such sorrow and really his voice cracking, talking about people who have lost their loved ones that we now know include both children as well as senior citizens. But towards the end, especially when the journalists started asking questions, there was a tone of anger, of was enough done, specifically about what should be done about what some are calling a mental health crisis or pandemic in the city of Vancouver, and also was enough done in terms of security at the festival. Some of the questions I jotted down was, what constituted risk assessment? Did the police do enough ahead of the festival to protect the people? What about erecting barriers? Where were those barriers? One of our colleagues, Leanne Yun, asked that question as well. What do you make from that, from really journalists really holding their feet to the fire about was enough done to avert this terrible tragedy?
Sure. So what I would say, that being here on this scene, what I would say is that I would describe this as very much a quiet residential area behind this John Oliver Secondary School. It's a very large school, stretches about 2 blocks. And as I say, there's that one street, 43rd, that does run behind. And that's where they had lined up the food truck. So a couple of things. Most of the event was being held on school property. It was fenced in. There was only the one street that had the food trucks on it. But of course, that is the area that was accessible because we heard there were no vehicle blocking barricades that were put up. There were traffic stopping cones or some kind of a movable piece of wood or plastic, we've heard it described. But that was really just to direct traffic. It was not to stop anything. They were very clear that police were in the area and responded to a few calls, one a missing child, one someone couldn't find their vehicle. So police were in the area, but they weren't actively patrolling this event. It is the second year in a row that this event has taken place. There was a significant number of people expected to attend, but there was nothing on social media. There were no known threats. There were no individuals involved who had any known threats to them. So those are the kinds of questions that police look at when they are determining whether or what kind of security might be necessary. And between organizers and the police, they come up with that plan. And the mayor also mentioned that this is just one of more than 3,000 events that happen in Vancouver. Again, and also I'll say this is not in downtown Vancouver either. Like I say, it's a quiet residential area behind a high school. So to the interim chief's point, he said, we don't want to cage everybody up at this at every event. There was no need to lock it down. Now, obviously hindsight is 2020. This went horribly, horribly wrong. And we're going to be talking a lot about it and what security measures are going to be necessary when it comes to these kinds of maybe smaller events, community events, and what's going to be required for the public to feel safe. And what we heard from the mayor is he wants people to still get out and go to events. But he did say, Deanna, and I think it is true, that you're going to have people in Vancouver right now taking a second thought. What do I feel comfortable doing in light of what has just happened here? And so I personally feel, and I think a lot of people I've spoken to, that the city feels a little bit changed because something on this magnitude, as the interim police chief had said earlier, it's a watershed moment, and I think that word is appropriate.
Yeah, you're really summing up, and I know you, of course, you live there as well. For all the people who are raising their families in Vancouver, it is such a scary moment where everything seems to have, the whole atmosphere in the city seems to have changed in this moment. Of course, for none more than for the families who lost their loved ones or are waiting to hear on the health status of their loved ones. We were, by the way, showing our viewers, just as you and I were chatting, the number that they can call if they're still not sure about a whereabouts of a friend or a family member who might have attended that festival. Sarah, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you, I mean, how difficult is it to keep this from getting political? Because inevitably questions about how much should be done in terms of protecting the public from incidents that may involve mental health episodes, in terms of being tough on crime. These are all things that we know do come up in political platforms. We know that Premier Eby is slated to meet with Mark Carney just later on this evening. We're now finding out that it appears that it's going to be a private meeting. How difficult do you think it is for all the officials involved, whether it's Premier Eby, Mayor Sim, the police chief, to keep this from spiraling into really a political baton, especially so close to the election?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's pretty tough given the timing and given the fact that this has been a political issue in Vancouver for quite a while. It's not the first time we've ever heard the mayor bring this up. But he also made the point, and you make it correctly too, that there are families in very much pain. There are still people critically injured who have not been identified. So it is early days to start trying to make this a political football. Deanna?
Sarah, thank you so much for your reporting and for really bringing us to the scene of this terrible tragedy. That's CBC's Sarah Galashan reporting from Vancouver. And victim services are available 24/7 for those who witnessed or experienced trauma. It is confidential and multilingual and available across BC. You can call or text 1-800-563-0808, and that's all toll-free. Now, federal party leaders are reacting to the events in Vancouver. Liberal leader Mark Carney spoke to Prime Minister in Hamilton, wearing his hat as the Prime Minister in Hamilton, Ontario. Here is some of what he had to say.
The strength and the resilience of the Filipino-Canadian community is exemplified by the Tagalog term, bayan niyan. It captures the Filipino spirit of community, of cooperation,